So welcome everybody to this month's Director's Dish. As you know, once a month I try to host a program to give you updates on things that are happening within the center and throughout the entire township. And I tend to have guest speakers, so it's not always me that you listen to each month. And this month I'm so happy to say that our friends at the East Brunswick Police Department once again decided to join us to do a program talking about safety, in particular for safety for seniors. So I just wanted to say thank you so much to Chief Frank Lasacco, and also from Community Policing Grant Korten, who is with us, who will be doing the bulk of the program today. And I'm sure that there will be plenty of time left for questions. But I just want to say thank you so much because I know how busy they are. So how about a warm welcome for our police department today? You don't want this, do you?
I don't want this.
No.
I think it'll be good. Can you hear me in the back?
Yeah.
All right, good. So my name is Frank Lasacco, and I have the distinct honor and pleasure, it's very humbling to be the Chief of Police here in East Brunswick. I've worked for the police department for almost as many years as puts me into the senior center at that point, but I'm not a member yet, I'm proud to. A little disappointed because when I heard it was a Director's Dish, I thought we were going to be eating.
That was yesterday.
Okay, so, and I heard of duels and everything again, and Dominic, we gotta talk about your fake ID when we're done here. So, you know what's humbling about being the chief of police is that you have a team of people that make you look good. Okay, I'm only as good as they do, and that's pretty good because of them. You have a tremendous amount of hard-working men and women that every day come with enthusiasm to work and respond to the residents, and they're running in the opposite direction of people when there's an emergency. And then when there isn't an emergency, they're very engaging with the public. We love to partner with the senior center. We have a great working relationship, so we'll be here anytime you want us to be. Maybe you'll get a restraining order if you get sick and tired. So part of my duties are to make sure I put the round pegs in the round holes. And I like to move people around so that people stay current in their job, they stay excited, and it gives other people or people in the agency an opportunity to experience different things. So recently, you guys might all know Reggie Wright. Does anyone know Officer Wright? No. He's been here a couple times, but some of you might know. I reassigned him out of community policing because round peg there, but he's a round peg in a different round hole, and he's doing something else. So I replaced him with Patrolman Grant Korten, who's behind me, to my left, to the right. And he's the one that's going to do the presentation. His job in community policing is like an organizational-wide philosophy. It's basically the philosophy that we are members of the community as well, and we have to police according to what the community needs. And when we have something come up, we respond to that. And that's the whole organization. The Community Policing Unit just supports that by doing programs like this. Comes out and educates the public and does various things. So today's an education program partnering with the Senior Center to say, hey, we've identified this need for you to be better educated and prepared in the case of things like fraud and those types of safety areas, and that's what he's going to do today. I'm going to probably listen for a little bit and then sneak out because I have other stuff going on. One of the things we're doing, which is exciting today, is one of our detectives is retiring. So today's his last day, so we do a ceremony at the end of the day where he walks out and everybody gets to see him walk out, and then we do a call on the radio, the last time calling, saw him off the radio. So we're doing that, so that's probably why I'll depart. But what's exciting is with everybody going out, you have new people coming in, so we have new officers that we're investigating right now, or new applicants, to hopefully put them into the ranks and get our ranks back up to the number to keep our community safe. So exciting opportunity to be here. We'll always be here and support the Senior Center and the Director's mission here. We're good partners. And without any further ado, I'm going to introduce Patrolman Grant Korten to be your instructor.
I want to get his name, sir, because I was brought up with the police general.
I'm going to write it down.
Yeah, I want to have his name. Okay.
Everybody able to hear me on here? Yeah. Wonderful. How are we all doing today?
Good, good. Chief, thank you for the introduction. Danielle, thank you for having us here today. I appreciate it and giving us some topics to discuss with everybody today. As I said, my name is Patrolman Grant Korten. I've been a police officer for 8 years. I'm a lifelong resident of East Brunswick. I grew up here. I bought a house here. I married the girl I've been dating since high school at East Brunswick High School. I'm stuck here for my entire life. And I see Luis back there, actually, who was at my wedding. So I knew you said you would be here, so I'm happy you're here. So it's good, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to come here today to talk to you guys about some different topics of concern that we could learn a little bit about together. So we're going to be talking about today different types of car thefts and burglaries, some residential burglaries, and scam prevention, and just different tips for us to have some prevention methods that we can keep in mind. Does everybody have a handout? Does anybody need a handout? Everybody has one? Okay. So my printer was acting a little crazy one day, so some of you might have only 2 pages, some of you might have 3 pages, some of you might have 4 pages. It's all the same information on all of them. It just printed out in a little bit of a different way. So don't worry if you see somebody on page 2 and you're on page 3, it's the same exact material. So for today we're going to start with different car thefts and car burglaries. The common items that we see stolen from vehicles, and I guess even before I go into that, with different types of crimes, whether it's a residential burglary or a theft of a vehicle or a burglary of a vehicle, we more often than not see these crimes occur not necessarily in the day as much, but more so in the overnight hours. So we need to be able to take preventative measures on our own to try and do what we can to minimize the likelihood of that happening, right? So some of the things that we see that are common items stolen from some of these vehicles, cash that is left in the car or change. Sometimes people's valuable personal possessions, such as wallets, credit cards, or important documents, whether it's a medical document or just some kind of birth certificate, social security card, things of that nature. We also have big things. People like to leave their house keys in the car, which I don't know how you're getting into your house if you leave them in the car, but they leave that in there. Garage door openers, easy pass readers, and sometimes parts of your car, like catalytic converters. Nowadays, catalytic converter thefts, the people that commit the thefts of catalytic converters are able to do it in such a quick time that you don't even realize that they were on your property. We go to a lot of training here at East Brunswick Police Department. We go to a lot of different classes. And some of these classes, they'll show us videos for things that pertain to different types of thefts. And they'll bring up catalytic converter thieves because they have certain tools with them. They'll jack a car up on its side really quickly. They'll go right under the car. They'll cut the piece out, and then they'll be out of there within 90 seconds, minute and a half, 3 minutes. And it's pretty, not the right thing to do, but it's impressive that they've gotten so good at that. So that's why we need to do what we can do to make ourselves better at preventing it. So let's go over some prevention. Here we go. All right. So first, we want to make sure our vehicles are locked, right? That's the most important thing. That's the most obvious thing that we could do to prevent things from being taken in our vehicle. Like I said, I grew up in East Brunswick, and I remember I got my license, and I said, I don't need to lock my car. It's East Brunswick. What's going to happen here? I like to think I grew up in a relatively, nice, quiet part of town, and I had some change taken out of my car one time, which I thought was just maybe me spending it at a food machine at one point. But I realized that I think somebody took some change out of my car, and luckily it wasn't anything else. But after that, and after my parents, explained to my parents, said, "You better lock your car. You better lock your car. You better lock your car." So that's the most important, the most foolproof thing that we could do to prevent this from happening. And with that being said, I wouldn't say that this has anything to do, or that doesn't mean that this town is less safe. Nowadays, by me emphasizing this, it's just that we need to do these basic measures to kind of make sure we're safe from, having someone break into our car. Second thing we need to do is remove valuable possessions from the vehicle when we're returning home. So all these items that I just talked about, money, coins, your personal possessions, house keys, garage door openers, your easy pass and whatnot. You know, most of these things can be taken out of the car. There's further negative consequences that could occur from you taking those things out. A lot of people, unfortunately, who, you know, steal vehicles will, you know, even not necessarily steal vehicles, who will break into a vehicle, they'll look to see if there's a garage door opener there. And because they have that garage door opener now, they might be able to get into your garage. And if you have a door attached to your house, you know, and sometimes people don't like to lock that door that's attached from their garage to their house because they think, you know, the garage door's shut, they'll be okay. But sometimes we have definitely seen in town, and just from me speaking with other police officers that I've worked with on different things, you know, could definitely attest to that being something that's been more frequently taken from vehicles recently. So that's something I think out of almost anything I recommend you take out of your car. Easy Pass we always recommend for people to take out of the car, but then at the same time, I know people who leave their Easy Pass in there, their vehicles have been stolen, and then we're actually able to track where they're going because of that. We also have other technology that we're able to use to, you know, be able to attempt to see where your vehicle's been. We have these automatic license plate readers. They're put out throughout certain parts of town, as well as the New Jersey State Police has them all over their turnpikes. They have them on the toll plazas going in and out of each New Jersey Turnpike tolls, Garden State Plaza tolls, wherever there's tolls in the state. They have cameras there where we're able to recognize and type in a license plate essentially and be able to find information that we need in case a vehicle was stolen, which does help us out. Let's see, let's make any personal possessions in your vehicle, mark any personal possessions in your vehicle to aid us in the recovery of these items. When we hypothetically get a call for someone whose vehicle's been burglarized and things have been taken out of that vehicle, us as police officers investigating this incident, we're going to ask, you know, what was taken, you know, maybe a monetary value of that. But then another thing we're going to ask is, was there any distinguishing marks on that item? Was there anything that makes that item stick out? So what I always recommend doing, something that I kind of do, I don't have my keys with me unfortunately, but where I have like something in my car, I kind of like do like a little like scratching. It's something that makes it less valuable, less desirable by someone who might be coming into your car. Because although it might put a little imperfection there, it's something that they see where, one, it's not as valuable to them, so maybe they don't want it. And then two, hypothetically, if they did take it, we'll have an easier time being able to identify that item if it were able to resurface and we were able to locate it. So that's something we always recommend that people do as well. The last thing I want to talk about is Faraday bags. So does anybody here know what a Faraday bag is? No? Okay. So Faraday bags, a very simple item. Does anybody here drive a car that has a key fob, not a turn-in key? So key fob. So that's what a Faraday's bag's main purpose is for. This bag, it's a small bag, it looks like a little coin purse. You put your key fob in there, and they have bigger size ones where you can put multiple ones in there. And what you do is you keep it in there, you keep it zippered, and it blocks wireless signals essentially from people who are able to adapt or copy your key fob to be able to enter your car. Because there's been times where we've gotten calls and people have had their vehicle stolen and they said, I promise you I locked the car. There's no way they could have gotten in there. There's no broken glass anywhere on the scene where we can't, you know, at least somewhat determine that there was, you know, forced entry into a vehicle. And then there's, you know, the situation where there's cameras there and we see the person physically walk up to the car and not just be able to open it, but you see the lights beep, the lights flash up in the front as if you're unlocking a car, right? So we, you know, start to think, oh, well, how'd that happen? They have this technology that they could use to basically try to copy your key fob and enter your car. It's not foolproof, it's not the most effective thing, but sometimes with certain types of cars, usually higher end cars, cars that are made in Europe more so than anywhere else, is where they're able to copy that key fob basically. I've personally never seen it, at least in my experience, with like a Honda or a Toyota. I've seen it more with Audis, BMWs, Mercedes-Benz, those types of cars that are typically a little bit, you know, nicer, higher end vehicles, but it doesn't mean that it's not applicable to every other kind of car. So back to Faraday bags. putting it in that bag blocks that signal. And it's something that we recommend people get. You can always go on Amazon, any kind of general website online. If you type it in, there's ones that are effective for $10, and then there's some that say they're the most super sophisticated ones in the world and they're the best ones they ever had, and those ones might be worth about $50 to $75. So I always recommend that that's something that somebody looks into if they're interested in trying to do a few little things about trying to maybe block off the signals that they might have come into their car. And it's quite frankly over my head as much as it might be over all of your heads. It's still technology that's kind of growing, and not everybody's fully familiar with it unless you're a super high-tech person, which I'm not. So the information I'm giving you is basically bare to the bones with that. Does anybody have any questions so far? I have no problem answering questions.
He said you said you should lock the car. So what happens if you put the car in the garage? Should we still lock the car?
Of course. I always rule number one, the best and the most efficient way to be able to prevent somebody from getting in your vehicle is locking the car doors and putting up the windows. Do you have a window that goes into your garage that's accessible from outside? So there you go. Somebody might be able to get in through there, which is another thing I'll get into later about putting curtains on even your garage windows and your basement windows, because it's just doing everything you can. That's very easy. It won't hold up your day any further by just taking a second to lock your door and being able to unlock it later.
When you have your phone in the Faraday bag,
Yeah.
do you have to take it out of the bag to open your car, or?
Well, so it's like a zipper. It's like a little coin purse. I mean, I guess technically, if it's like a little push button thing, and you could feel the button in there, it's that one. You could, I guess, leave it in there. But it's more so when you're driving around, you have, and I can't confirm this, I guess, but you're going to need to take it out to put it in your ignition. But if you want to leave it in that, well, if you have a key fob, it's remote, so you might be able to technically just leave it in there, I guess. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
No problem. Any other questions?
I have one question.
Yeah.
Usually my son will keep me in the car. He'll see the key. And then he'll say, don't worry, I'll be back in a minute. But you look, he said, Mom, don't open the door. I'm locking everything up. So I said, if somebody comes, what do I do?
So
Just put the key on and then...
what I would do in a situation like that, there's been times where maybe I was driving a car and my wife, was in the passenger seat, and maybe I ran in to go get, pick up food for dinner or something like that, where I always tell her, I'm like, lock the door. If something, fishy is gonna take the key out and run out of the car, kind of thing. That's such a specific. No, of course, it's a very specific situation where that's like the most, I guess, basic and yeah.
I was a driver for over 45 years.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go. So, and that's like, and that's something, that question that she brought up, it's just another thing to think about. Putting yourself in, putting possible situations in your head. Unfortunately, being a police officer, that's all I basically do. I put situations that, may not frequently happen in my head, but I run through, I'm going to do A, then B, then C. And if that doesn't work, then I'm going to do, M to Z, it's kind of something that you have to, you think about all the time, but it's always good, think about things that, might happen. So you never know, exactly. So any other questions pertaining to vehicles specifically? Nope. All right, so we're going to move on to residential burglaries. Criminals are finding new ways to successfully burglarize residences. They're very in-depth and strategic about how they do these things. They can, if they don't even necessarily know what they want, but they can determine that a residence is able to be easily accessed through what they could do, they could figure that out just by looking at the outside of your home and be able to burglarize your house possibly and be in and out very quickly, which is something we do see with some of these. I would say in some residential burglaries we've had, people are in the house for maybe as little as 4 or 5 minutes, and sometimes we've seen them in there for almost too long, I guess I would say, but on average maybe like 10 to 15 minutes. So that's always something that they're able to kind of gather that information just by looking at the outside of your house. One thing that they do to gather that information, they case the neighborhoods. Does anybody know what I mean by casing the neighborhoods? So just checking everything out exactly, checking things out, seeing what's up, seeing if this is, something that is going to be doable from them on their point of view as a criminal, where they're not going to be, seen and be able to kind of get in and out without having any problems. And it might be as much as them just driving through the neighborhood. I've seen things as crazy as people disabling electrical wires to houses to then try and get access into a house, because then the cameras are off, alarm system's off, and then they forced entry into the house. That was an isolated incident, I will say, but it's something that I have seen before, and unfortunately we all need to prepare for the unexpected for things like that. It's better to have that information and know maybe how to handle it, opposed to just kind of turning a blind eye to it, I guess I would say. So several preventative measures we could take. Once again, the most important thing that we could do is making sure the residence is locked, okay? And I know that's my number 2 on here, but I just wanted to jump to that first. Let's make sure it's locked. All of our doors, all of our windows, completely locked, completely shut. It doesn't matter if you're leaving for 5 minutes, it doesn't, or if you're leaving for as long as 2 weeks. Just make sure your doors are locked, because you never know who's around. You never know what's going to happen. It's just better to be safe than sorry. It's not going to slow your day up at all by having to put the key into your front door or click onto your garage or anything like that. It's just always better to be safe than sorry. Going back up to number 1, always having your residence appear occupied when you're away from home. So for me personally, what I do, I turn on my light right under my house, under my front door. I turn on my front hallway door. I turn on my kitchen, which is towards the back of my house. I put a light on towards the right side of my house near my bathroom. And the reason why I do that is that light covers all 4 corners of the house. So where essentially if somebody were to come onto my property and they were to look, they would see that there's, light everywhere and might be under the assumption that somebody's possibly there. So that's always something that I recommend to people and what they do for a situation just by, being away even for a couple of minutes. So don't tempt criminals that want to come onto your property. The first thing I would say is storing outdoor items storing outdoor items away and keeping them out of sight. Whether it's lawn equipment, a lawnmower, a leaf blower, hedge trimmer, something like that, maybe even a bicycle, ladders, definitely steps and stools, snow shovels, things like that. Just keeping them away, because it's just, in a criminal's point of view, an item that they can monetize one way or another, and to at least not show that to them, it's something that at least allows your house to possibly be more safe. We were just talking about the garage before. Putting curtains on any windows that are on your garage, and also on your basement windows too. I personally just throw little curtains up. I make sure my wife approves them first, that they're nice and fashionable, believe me, but I do, we put them up though, just so it's extra security, just so we make sure that there's nobody else looking into the house down there or anything like that. I would also say the one thing, and I wrote this down in my notes as I'm reading this, I'm laughing, don't put any obvious notes on the house. The one thing I see sometimes is, going food shopping, be back in an hour on the person's front door. And the one where I prior to working in East Brunswick, I worked for a different police department down in South Jersey, and I felt really terrible for the woman, but she put this sign, this little note on her front door to, I guess, put it to the attention of Amazon and, delivery drivers, things like that. Today's the 30th, so going on vacation from October 30th until November 15th. She gave a 2-week time frame, and I'm like, oh, Jesus, you feel bad. The house unfortunately was broken into. Luckily, nothing was actually taken there, thankfully, but still, I saw that, and it makes me shake my head a little bit. So please don't do anything like that.
So Grant, another thing I don't know if you'd agree, but on social media, if you are traveling, it's
Yep.
probably not a good idea to post photos while you're there unless someone is home.
100%.
Wait to post until you come back.
Yep, 100%. That the biggest thing. A lot of people like to show that they're on vacations, that they're away enjoying themselves, which great for you. Enjoy yourself. Everything doesn't need to be posted online. That's for sure, and I 100% agree with that.
You were talking about lights. What about timers?
So and I'll be getting into a little bit more. The lights, motion sensor lighting is really good. It's at the point now where they're not even necessarily have to be wired. They could be like solar panel lights where you put like a little solar panel thing up. But these lights are so bright nowadays and they cover so much area and they're relatively affordable. Where those, in my opinion, are some of the best lights. If you can invest into like a little bit higher end wired in lights or something like that, they're just as effective. All right. Any other questions, I guess, before we keep going? Nope. Okay. So we were at maintaining and updating the security features of your house. So security systems and surveillance cameras. I'm going to go with the lighting just because we're still on it. So like I said, motion censored lighting, guys, is definitely something that's really, as I just said, very affordable for these solar panel lights. You can find anything on Amazon. You type in solar panel outdoor lights. You'll be able to come across something that I'd like to think is a relatively affordable thing. The next thing, though, with that is your security systems your surveillance cameras. Many companies offer this nowadays. If anybody here has Xfinity, which most of the people in East Brunswick do have, yep, oh yeah, no, I hear you. So Xfinity has a good security system that they install all themselves. Not a very hard system to like watch the videos like on your phone. They hook it up to your phone, and if you don't have like a smartphone, they have it on their computers and everything, on a computer that you could see it all too. I got most of my cameras from there. I also have Ring cameras at my house too, but I'm able to cover basically the entire area of my property through these cameras, which gives me a little bit more sense of security, just knowing that I can keep an eye on my house when I'm away from it at the same time. And there's not only Xfinity, there's Ring cameras. If anybody here has ADT is another really good one. For anybody that has an alarm system here, I'm sure your alarm system company, if it's not one of those, is able to offer some type of surveillance cameras, and they could go over all the prices with you. I'm not one of their sales consultants, I promise you. So what we should do if our residence is broken into, well, actually, before we go over that, the other thing that a lot of people don't understand, and I'm not saying that you need to have your property look pristine, because we all know it's pretty expensive sometimes to maintain a super beautiful property, but make sure your landscaping is at least well kept to a degree. Cutting some tree branches, trimming down some bushes. Try not to have your windows be blocked by some of these bushes, because bushes can serve as a barrier between a criminal trying to possibly enter your house through a window or something like that, and they can't be seen by the general public. So that's something that we always recommend that people kind of keep trimmed down, and maybe have like a little bit shorter bushes by your windows. But going on to the next topic, next part of this, what to do if your residence is broken into. First, do not enter the residence or touch anything until the police arrive and investigate the incident. And while you're doing that, call us so we can come in to do an investigation. When we get there, you might just be walking up to your front door. A window might be open, you might be able to see your house, but you might see that things look kind of out of place. It looks like it might be possibly, disheveled items all throughout the house, or if it's even something minor that looks out of place, you always can call us and we will go in and we will conduct a check of your house and make sure it's safe, so you guys can go into your house comfortably without feeling like there might be something in there that you don't want to have any confrontation with, whether it's a person or a thing. There's people that have called us that thought someone broke into their house, but an animal somehow got in there, and we were able to at least help them get the animal out of their house. But What's it? Squirrel? No, I'm sorry. For calling us, when we get there, the biggest thing we want is as much relevant facts, pertaining to this like situation. So if you get back from wherever you were, you walk up, you see that your front door is kind of pushed in, the framing of the door might be off, possible indication that somebody might have broken into your house. We want to, ask you certain things like, and we're going to ask you, have you seen anything suspicious around here lately? Have people been, walking around that you might have not noticed recently? Are cars parking somewhere down the street? Have certain solicitors who work for these companies been coming to your house more frequently and knocking on your door or trying to get access into your house, or especially knocking on your door if you're on the do not knock list, which I am too, so it bothers me when people knock on my door. But they come up to you sometimes a lot to try and ask questions that you think are kind of opposite of what they're looking for in whatever they're trying to sell. They could be, potentially casing your house. So those are things to try and keep in mind. And us as police officers, especially here in East Brunswick, we're trained to ask, these certain questions where it's almost like we go through the motions to make sure we covered all our tracks with the baseline questions, and then we get into the more specifics of what's going on. So just bear with us sometimes if we might ask questions that have no, specific relation to what is exactly happening. There's things that we need to decipher first so we can make sure we serve you guys the best as possible when we're out there. Does anybody have any questions about anything with residential burglaries at all? Anything about cameras, anything about lighting, which I appreciated you asking before. Any questions about anything with that?
Question. During the earthquake, I have a security system, and I wasn't home, and when the earthquake happened, it knocked pictures off of my dresser. Mm-hmm. And the security system called the police. They came to the house, they walked around, and they said there was nothing disturbed, there's no break-in.
Yeah.
So my son got a phone call stating that everything was okay. I raced home, and of course, the police were already gone. They told me everything was okay.
Yeah.
But I still went into the house to check, and that's when I found out everything was knocked down, and that's what set off the alarm.
Yeah. Well, and that's such an, it's I remember, like, I was in my backyard doing lawn work. I was mowing the lawn, and I just remember shaking as I'm doing it, and my dog, like, starting to bark for no reason. And I'm like, the heck's going on? So, like, it's such an isolated incident, but I do recall my friend who was working that day, I had spoke to him later at the end of his shift, and he said we got a extremely high volume of alarm calls because it was a bunch of burglary alarms because everybody thought their house was going into. Like, it was astronomical, and I think a lot of people who were watching the news or had a phone next to them understood that, a possible earthquake had just happened. And I think when people who have like cameras for the inside of their house were looking at it, and I think they determined that was what happened. But we did get a lot, and it just goes to show the burglar alarms they work. Exactly. Sometimes they work when you don't want to, when it's 3 a.m. and we're knocking on your door to make sure everything's all right. But it goes to show that they are a worthy investment, though, especially if anybody doesn't have them. I highly advocate for them. That I think they're some of the best things that you guys could have, just to at least be able to trip something. And if anybody has a big dog like I do, that always helps too. I would say yeah.
I just want to know, I read something this morning about a van in Society Hill. I don't know if anybody lives Society Hill. Excuse me. That kind of like parks and watches. They're watching the kids. And they've been there a couple of times. People are like, what should we do? Or should we call the police? Or, maybe it's just somebody who's doing something okay. Mm-hmm. Where do you draw the line with that?
So with something like that, the way it's how I guess it starts hypothetically calling, explaining something like that to our dispatchers. Our dispatchers are going to ask if you're saying like it's a suspicious person or activity going on. We're going to ask, what are they doing? And then obviously if you're saying something like this where it's repeatedly happening, to be quite honest with you, I'm not sure if we've addressed this issue already or not. I'm not sure. I could check, but Basically just to have some kind of, at least like relevant information to be able to provide to us, because that's going to allow us to make the decision of if it's something that might require either an immediate response, because if that's happening at a certain time of day where kids are getting picked up and dropped off from school, and this is all hypothetical, I'm not saying I have any concrete information to this, but that's something that is definitely going to pique our interest, and we want to make sure that nothing is going on that shouldn't be.
According to what I read, the police had been involved, but they asked, we need a license, get me a license plate, get me something, and they haven't been able to do that yet. So
Yeah.
what do you do in that case?
Well, so with that case, if this has been, and I apologize for not seeing this, I'm usually on top of this, top of things like this. If they're alleging that this is the description of the van we have, we ask, obviously, don't walk right up to the van, especially if somebody's in there and get a license plate or anything like that. We don't want you to put yourself in any kind of harmful situation. If you happen to see that, if you happen to just be aware of the exact time frames of when this is happening, all that information are things that we could use where we could have our officers, becoming aware of it and then being in that area during that time. That's going to help us out a lot to be able to try and figure this out, address the situation however we can. Those are probably the best things, because unfortunately sometimes things don't get resolved immediately. We want to try and resolve them as immediately and efficiently as possible, but that's what I would recommend. Any kind of information, anything you see that's a pattern, definitely you could always call us, update us, and it's something that we'll continue to look into.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Any other questions?
I have one more question what I
Okay.
said yesterday. I always check my door 3 times.
Good.
Sometimes I do at home. And child never been out. And I did that. I mean, am I wrong?
No, there's nothing wrong with being a good neighbor, and I think you can determine. You could determine exactly. Yep. You could determine. I think pretty quickly when you move into a certain area and when you get to know people, especially the people that you live right next to, that some people you could trust at least, to help you out with little things. I would say one of my neighbors and I are friendly, very friendly. We don't have like a very personal relationship, but I've helped him. I've seen him trying to carry boxes into his house before, and I saw that maybe I can go and help him out, kind of thing.
In our area, it's bushy. There's so many trees.
Yep. Oh yeah, I know.
Somebody can come and attack her.
Yeah.
So at least if I'm there, I will scream and all the neighbors will come.
Yeah. There you go. That would be a team effort then for sure. But hopefully that doesn't happen. But
Caring about people,
of course.
1 month ago, there was a burglary in our Lawrence Brook section of East Brunswick. So I want to know, how does the police go about it? Because they never tell us that the status. Did they find somebody? They didn't find somebody?
So and if it's someone, say it was a neighbor that called and said they saw somebody, and I'm not sure of the specifics of it, but if a third party, as we say, if somebody called on somebody else's behalf, they saw somebody breaking into one of their neighbors' houses, we would ask for as much information as possible. Obviously the location, that's the most important thing. And then what the emergency is, obviously a burglary here. Try to see, how many people are there? What are the people wearing? Does it look like they have any weapons on them? Things of that nature we want to try and see. If they left, what area, say if it was in the Lawrence Brook section, if it was on Sullivan Way right by Lawrence Brook, did they go towards Egger Street or University, or did they go towards Riders Lane? Those are the questions we want to ask. Our officers are, circulating the area, and for calls like that, that's a high priority for us. We want to make sure that we address that situation as quickly as possible and as efficiently as possible to try and, catch these people that are doing that. But then at that point, it becomes an investigation, right? So there's an investigation that we have to conduct, and we can't disseminate that information necessarily right away until we conclude our investigation. So that's probably the biggest reason why that you don't hear anything. But I would, always say that should never, stop you from wanting to call us and, for things like that, because you're doing the right thing by calling us, being a good neighbor, obviously, one, and then helping us try and, find these people who are doing bad things in our town that we don't want them to do. So I just would hope that never discourages you or anybody from ever calling us, because everybody wants to know what's going on. I understand that, but sometimes we just can't provide that information to the public. So that's just one thing that we always try to keep people aware of. And you had a question?
If you have the code for like your front door, and say like during the night, I don't know, you had an emergency and you call the police, Is it possible to give them that code?
Yeah, and you can even provide it ahead of time. So when we get dispatched somewhere, we will have, which would be great if people provided us that information ahead of time. So a lot of people will call us, they'll give us like a door code kind of thing, if, depending on where they live, just so we can gain access into the place. So that would be great. You could always call ahead of time and be like, hey, I live at 123 Main Street. My door code I just want you guys to have in case something were to happen in the future, it's 1234. And then we jot that information down so our dispatchers have it readily available so they could let the police officers know when they're responding to a call. So that's great. Yep.
I have a question. God forbid somebody attacked me. Can I use the spray?
The pepper spray?
Yeah. Am I going to get legal?
If you're defending yourself, you're allowed to defend yourself. However, I know that stuff's not very effective, really. I'll be completely honest with you, but in all seriousness, if you are ever in a situation where someone's trying to harm you, you have the full opportunity to defend yourself, and you do what you need to do there. Obviously, don't go crazy, doing extra more. If you're able, you make sure the situation's safe for you and for anybody else that's in the area. That's like the most important thing that I would say for that. Yeah. Any other questions? We're just going to go over a few things with scams real quick, and then I'll take any more questions after that. Alrighty. So for scam prevention, the biggest thing, please never send money to anyone you don't know. This rule for scams and people who are trying to defraud you is just as comparable and just as important as making sure all your doors are locked and your windows are rolled up or locked for your houses or your vehicles. They're the two most important things that I could recommend. For some different prevention things, for anybody who gets any emails, like unsolicited emails, I always encourage you not to not open up any attachments that are a part of there. Some of these emails where they send you something, there could be an attachment on it. It might have something that's called malware, more or less some kind of software, something that could affect your computer. And it could not only affect your computer, it could also, possibly be able to gather personal information through that. Like I said, I'm a police officer. I'm not in the IT world at all, but I know people that work in that field, and they highly, encourage people to just stay away from emails like that. Just delete them, regardless of what it says. Just delete it. It's not something that's legitimate, and it could be harmful to your computer and to you. Same thing with don't believe everything you see. People who are trying to scam you, especially through the internet or technology, they're very good at mimicking different logos and seals that different companies have. So if something as simple as the Township of East Brunswick, there's a logo on the East Brunswick website. That could be mimicked very similarly by a person that's trying to scam you, requesting tax payments or something like that, which is something I have seen before. Not for a friend of mine who works in a different jurisdiction had said they had an issue with that in their town for a while, and there was unfortunately some people that were paying it a good amount of money that they're not going to get back. Never share personal information with someone who's contacted you unsolicited, whether it's online, over social media, or in person. Specifically with this, your bank information, your credit card information, and then your date of birth and your social security number. Those are the biggest things that if someone gets a hold of any of those things, they can unfortunately really do a lot of damage with being able to take advantage of you financially, which is nothing that any of us want, and it's something that people just have to be really mindful of about not giving anything out. So sometimes people do give things out because they feel nervous, and I always let people know, don't be pressured to act immediately. This is something it's a tactic that scammers try to use to try and get you to act quickly. They don't want you to have the time to go and maybe ask a friend or a family member or the police. They want you to feel threatened, they want you to feel scared, they want you to feel as if you have to act now or else the worst will possibly happen. It's something that, you know, and I'll get into like one example in a little bit. They'll allege that they are with, you know, your nephew, your niece, your grandson, granddaughter, whoever it may be, and that you need to send them money through, you know, a wire transfer or through PayPal gift cards or a Target gift card, which are not legitimate means of, or common means of payment unless you're going to those stores to pay with those things. So don't feel pressured. Always take a second to just take a deep breath, look back and be like, is this something that is legitimate? Or if it's a phone call, just hang up. You could always call the police. We could always come and assist you, figure out together what's going on. More often than not, for your big payments, whether it's a mortgage payment, you know, maybe, you know, I'd say mortgage payment is the biggest one. Just, you know, you know the way that you're most commonly communicated by that company. Just you know, take a second to say, wait, this doesn't seem right. And then you could always call the mortgage company or whatever other company you may have a loan with, whatever it may be, through the number that you're familiar with, and then you could verify that that's legitimate or not. Always use secured and traceable types of transactions when you're paying for various things. Like I said, the prepaid gift cards, the Target gift cards, the wire transfers, those are not legitimate means of payments. They're the most common requested forms of payment from these scammers because it's the way that they're able to get this money as quick as possible. And by gift cards, like you might buy a physical gift card, but then they'll ask you to scratch off the back and ask you for the card number and the PIN number with it. So they could just have those numbers so they get what they want. So unfortunately, it's something, like I said, that happens far too often. The one on the bottom right here, working with local businesses and contractors that have proper identification, the licensing, and insurance. The biggest thing that I always do, that I always recommend that people do, is asking these businesses that maybe you're getting work done at your house, you know, ask them for their insurance, if they could provide proof of their insurance. If it's a good, reputable contractor or, you know, landscape or whatever it may be, they're gonna have no issues providing you with that information. Then there's ones, if you ask them and they kind of say, oh, why do you need that? That's a red flag. Because that could be a scam that's an in-person scam. You know, they'd be like, why do you need that? And then as you're talking to them, going over the details of the contract, they're gonna want, you know, hypothetically 50% of it paid up front, so they could buy, you know, the materials, quote unquote. And then they said they're coming, it's on a Tuesday, they're coming on a Friday, and they don't show up ever again. You never hear from them. So that's something that we do see a lot. So those are the one thing, the couple, you know, preventative steps that you could take to kind of maybe decipher if you're gonna go through a process with like a local contractor, at least one that you trust. And a personal example for that, I'll say at least, I know my mother was looking at a roof. There was one company that came over, I remember, to do the estimate, and I just happened to be outside, and more with my professional background, I'm overhearing what's going on, and I just said, do you have insurance by any chance? And gave me the, oh, why do you need that kind of thing? Convinced my mom, do not do it, just don't do it with this person. And then, and once again, I'm not doing any self-promoting for these people. I had her call Maraglia Roofing. Miss Maraglia came over, showed his insurance, showed everything, did a great job, fair price, great job on the house. He's reputable. He's someone that you could trust. That was something where, you know, I then was able to determine that first person was up to something. It didn't look good. And even if they might have actually come back and do the work, they don't have insurance or something like that, that could be a bad situation. God forbid something were to happen. So just the little things for us to all look at while we're dealing with these things. So I believe my next slide is going to be, so I have a few different types of, you know, the most recent and the most common types of scams that we have seen. There's a blackmail scam where essentially, you know, so this is, they'll say, they've obtained information about you, whether it's like personal or sensitive information about you, and that they will tell your entire family about it. They'll post it all over social media. They'll do all these terrible things to you if you don't pay them in the form of some kind of credit card or gift card within 2 hours. The most important thing, like I said, always stay calm. Don't give them any information. Stop communicating with them. Try and save the messages. I always recommend, so it's something that you could remember for next time. The biggest thing, even if you don't get scammed in this situation, you could always call us and let us know, because sometimes trends like this come back. There's different kind of ones that come in and out, and this is one that happens pretty often. And although I don't like that it happens, I like when it gets brought up, because at least us as the police officers in East Brunswick, we have a lot of knowledge on it. We know we're basically able to read the message that is being sent to you and determine that it's false. And usually there's a lot of bad grammar in there, a lot of bad punctuation. It's almost as if the sentence doesn't make sense. It's like it's typed by somebody who's just unable to form a proper sentence. So those are definitely things that we're very familiar with, and we have no problem trying to decipher and help you out with. I kind of went over the debt collection and the grandparent one. The mail fraud one is one that I've seen come back a little bit more, just from talking to some people in the state of New Jersey who are law enforcement officers here who have been handling calls like this, which is why I wanted to bring it to attention. The letter that you might get in the mail might be from the New Jersey Lottery if you're playing the lottery, or you maybe entered a sweepstakes online or in person at some kind of event. It's going to look like an official letter. It's going to tell you that you've won, or you have the opportunity to claim some type of great prize, whether it's money, a car, maybe a nice watch, something that's not easily or readily accessible by everybody just to pay for without any issue. But the catch-all is that you have to provide them with your personal information before you can get that. Don't do that. Don't do that. The biggest thing with that, unless you've directly entered the lottery, or you got a big win on a scratch off or something, you sent it all in, you do all the things you're supposed to do, and they come back and ask you for information, which they might communicate with you via mail for that. But for something like this, it's not legitimate. There might be a number on there that you could see that, it's just, I would call the number, if it's the New Jersey Lottery, I wouldn't call the number that's on that paper. I would call the actual number that you could find online, where you could call the customer service directly and be like, hey, this is a situation I got. I just want to confirm if it's real or not. And then they'll be able to assist you in that. Also, you could always call us and we could help figure it out with you. With calling us and reporting different scams that might have happened to you, if you were defrauded of money, personal items, whatever it may be, 100% give us a call. You can call our dispatch and we will come out right away. You can also report it online too. There are certain reports that you can make online, but if it involves a theft of usually over $1,000, we recommend that you call us so we can go out there and speak to you on a little bit more of a personal level, just so we can understand what's going on. There's usually documentation that's involved. But I would definitely say that, not calling us, you don't have to call us if you didn't get the fraud or didn't get scammed, but it's okay to call us just to give us general information, because our biggest thing that we like is having information and hearing things that are going on in the town. So when you guys have these things happen to us, even if they weren't successful with you, we know, and then we can kind of disseminate this information, whether on social media or people that we talk to. There was one going on and it stopped. It happened like once again recently. I guess whoever this people that were scamming were going on the township website. We're finding the officer's information that's on that website. And from what I understand, people were getting emails from the officer saying that they had to come to police headquarters and pay them money or something like that. So there was people coming to the station saying, hey, I'm here to meet Officer so-and-so, Sergeant so-and-so, with whatever kind of money or whatever demands need to be met. And we're like, no, that's not what we do here, no. So hopefully, so if you do see that, if you do get an email from somebody, always, especially from the police department, call the police department first to verify to make sure it's all right, or it's actually us.
You have a non-emergency number?
We do. So, and I put it on this form, and whoever doesn't have the form, they could always call us, but I did put it on the top of that paper. Yep. And when you call that number, you will always get, you'll hear like an automated thing at first, and the first option will say, if you want to speak to a dispatcher, press 0 or 1. I'm pretty sure it's 0. And then you'll be able to talk to our dispatcher right away. All right, but yeah, for anybody who doesn't have that paper, either myself or Danielle will hand them out. If you need them at the end of this, you could definitely come and ask me. So the last part for what we need to do if we believe we've been scammed, contact your bank or credit card company. Just let them know, just so they can disable the card, make sure that nothing further can be done. Cancel those cards. They'll probably do that with you while that's happening. Resetting the passwords on all the impacted accounts, and then if you're someone who kind of keeps the similar passwords for different things, I know it gets a little annoying, but I don't recommend doing that. I recommend making different passwords for everything. I have a little note on my phone that I use to keep track, but I also keep my own personal written ones too, just to make sure I'm aware of what password is for what account. Like I said, always file a police report with us if you have been scammed one way or another. And like I said, we do have online reporting, which is accessible through our East Brunswick Police Department webpage. You were to go to the East Brunswick Township website, you go to the public safety page, the police department page, and that'll list the different things that you can report it for. But by all means, that doesn't mean that you can't call us and we can't come out and speak to you about it, that we have no issue doing that as well. And the last, this should be the last one, yep. Yeah. Yep, so the last one is just report the scam online to the Better Business Bureau if you want. You don't have to. Usually the ones that are reported, they get them in pretty high volume, but it's always doesn't hurt to do that. And then the last one, always ask a friend, a trusted friend, a family member for any assistance. Don't be upset if it happened to you. It happens to almost anybody. It really does. It's an unfortunate thing, but working together, having two brains attacking one issue is better than having one brain attacking it. So definitely don't hesitate to reach out to anybody. That's all I got. I'm going to be more than willing to take any more questions that we have, but I thank you for your time. Danielle, thank you again for having us come here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for all that information. It's a lot to process, but just remember too that we're here for you as well, especially those of you that are coming here on a regular basis. So we frequently, and some of you in this room have brought us things you've received in the mail. We're happy to tell you if that is fraudulent. Most of the time we can tell that. We get and see a lot of that, unfortunately. And if we do not know, again, our relationship with the EBPD is fantastic, and I certainly can reach out to them at any time to ask them for their help. And then also, if you receive any phone calls, right, like that grandparent scam where someone is calling you and it even sounds as if it's a family member's voice, and you are afraid, they tell you not, don't tell mom, don't tell dad. Well, you can tell Danielle, you can tell Judy, you can tell Nicole. All right, so if you get a phone call like that, you certainly can give us a call and we will help you investigate it and we will help you figure out if in fact that is true, because these scammers are so good at this point that they can get your voice, a voice to sound just like a relative. All right, so it is really important, especially if someone tells you don't tell anybody, right? Don't tell mom, don't tell dad. Well, then immediately my red flag would go up. So just know too that we are here for you, and so don't be embarrassed. Anything you talk with us about behind closed doors, as you know, stays behind closed doors. It is confidential unless we have permission to discuss it outside. All right, and then of course, if we do need to ask the police, that again is confidential. As you heard earlier, they can't necessarily disclose things to you, but we can tell them and ask them anything we need to. All right, so please, we're always here for you as well. But thank you again for taking the time out of your schedule, and everybody else have a good rest of the day. Thank you.